The coronavirus has been causing havoc over the entire world, and cruise ships are no different. There's one cruise ship which has confirmed cases of coronavirus within its passengers, and that is the Diamond Princess. The Diamond Princess holds 3,700 people, and at the moment they've had 69 positive cases of coronavirus. This creates a massive problem for Princess, who are faced with now trying to quarantine all of those passengers. There's so many things that Princess have to think about that you would never even consider. What do they do with the passengers in the inside cabin? The quarantine is supposed to last for 2 weeks, and you can't leave people inside for 2 weeks. Some of those people are sharing a cabin with 2 or 3 other adults, and being in an inside cabin with that many people for that long would be awful. Being confined to any cabin must be horrible, but an inside cabin is extra horrible. I have been following the story of a family on board Diamond Princess who are sharing an inside cabin. It is 2 parents and 2 teenage kids who are sharing an inside cabin. I have shared an inside cabin before on a cruise with my parents and my brother when I was a teenager, and it's fine for a few days, but this quarantine is going on for 2 weeks. That said, look at their fantastic smiling faces. They have such good attitudes to this, and I think that's what you need, because there's nothing worse than being stuck in an inside cabin with people who are just miserable. That would be awful. The coronavirus originated in China, and there's 34,000 cases. 69 of them are on board the Diamond Princess. The Diamond Princess is currently outside Yokohama in Japan. She has been floating around in the ocean because they have to make fresh water, and they can only make fresh water when they are sailing. So the cruise ship's kind of just been in limbo. It's a 14-day quarantine for all passengers, and the passengers have to stay in their cabins pretty much the entire time. They have decided now that people who are in inside cabins can go out and get some fresh air. They're doing a kind of rotational basis where people can go out and get some fresh air, but they have to wear masks, and they're not allowed, I think, within a meter of other passengers, which is really difficult. They've been told that they can't take the elevator. They've really got to do everything they can to stay away from other people, which is very difficult on a cruise ship. Cruise ships are of course trained for things like this. They're trained for emergencies, but I don't think anything like this has ever happened to the cruise industry before, and it's very difficult. A lot of loud voices are very unhappy about it, but there's also some voices that are very positive. I've been following a lot of people's journeys who are on board, and some of them are just so funny, they're so positive, and they're so nice to see. One of my favourites who is doing this is a guy called David. He is British, and he's on board with his wife Sally. They do video diaries, and they come in every single day and they explain what is going on. They've been showing us things like the food. Of course, there isn't a full menu that you'd find in the main dining room. The buffet isn't open, of course. At the moment, the guests on board are getting a menu of sorts, so they do have some kind of say in what they're eating, but generally speaking, unless you have a special dietary requirement, you're kind of limited in what you're going to eat. But I think the passengers are just grateful for having hot food. It's still good food. It's still Princess Cruises food. For the people who are on board and not allowed to smoke, they are bringing in nicotine patches, they're bringing in nicotine gums, they're bringing in things to try and help them. That is a very difficult way to quit smoking, to go cold turkey in a quarantine on board a cruise ship, but I suppose that does work. They're having a really big job too to try and get everybody's prescriptions on board, because most people, they might cruise with maybe an extra week's worth of prescription medicines, but you don't expect to be stuck on the cruise ship for an extra 2 weeks. And once the guests get off, it's not really clear if they're going to have to go into another quarantine. Some of the passengers on board are British, some are American, and when they get back to Britain or America or Australia or wherever they're from, they might have to go through another quarantine, so the end could be quite far away for these people. I took a cruise last year with Princess in Asia, which was fantastic, but the age demographic on the cruise was definitely older than what you'd find on other cruises I've been on. I think it's just because of the location, the fact that these cruises are quite expensive and they do take quite a long time, so there weren't really many younger people on board, and that might explain why there's so many requests for medication, but either way, that's a very, very difficult job for Princess. The quarantine is expected to last until the 19th of February, which is a very, very long time to spend on any cruise ship, let alone confined to your cabins. Princess have given everyone Wi-Fi, they've given everyone the ability to phone home so that they can let their friends and family know that they're okay. They've given everyone a thermometer too, so that they can take their temperature when they're on board, and if their temperature is raised, they have to give themselves up, I suppose, to medical staff so that they can be tested for the virus. Everybody's got their own thermometer and they're regularly checking their temperatures. That's a nice touch from Princess to give out all of those thermometers. I can't imagine that that was cheap. They're putting on loads of movies too, and they're putting on exercise classes on the TV, because of course, if you're in an inside cabin for 2 weeks, you cannot get much exercise in there. I imagine it does feel a little bit like being in a prison cell, and you better hope that you're friends with whoever you're staying in your cabin with. I have cruised before, 4 people in an inside cabin, and it's okay for 3 or 5 nights, maybe, but it's only okay because you don't spend much time there. I cannot imagine being stuck there, even for an entire day, let alone 2 weeks. That would just drive you mad. So they are also offering counselling to anyone who needs counselling. They can phone a counsellor at any time, which is really nice. I imagine I would be there on the floor doing push-ups. It would be like being in prison, and by the time I came out of quarantine, I would be really strong. Another person that I am enjoying following on board is a guy called Matthew Smith. He's live tweeting everything, and he says, "I find myself waking up far earlier than I otherwise would so that I don't miss the knock on the door for breakfast, including the only coffee for the day. I open the door and lean my head out into the hall, careful not to cross the threshold," you're not allowed to cross the threshold at all, "to look for the carts in the hall. When I see them, I close the door and stand inside, waiting for the sound of the bustling crew approaching. I remind myself of nothing so much as my cat waiting for her daily serving of canned food. Is it time? Is it time?" This guy, he has such a nice, positive, funny attitude to this. There are quite a lot of people on board who are complaining, of course. People complain on regular cruises, so they're definitely going to complain about this one. But I really like this guy's positive attitude, and I really like following David and Sally, who are currently on board, and Facebooking everything that's going on. I will put links in the description to various people that you can follow. I hope that they don't mind me using little clips of them in this video, but I just love their attitude, and I think if everyone was like these people, it would be a much better place, and the cruise ship will be a much nicer place to be on. It's really important that you cruise with people that you like. I often cruise in inside cabins, and this would not stop me from cruising in an inside cabin at all. If anything, this makes me want to book a cruise with Princess more, because they're dealing with this so well. They're being so kind, and they're going above and beyond what they actually have to do to make sure that everybody is okay, faced with this horrible, horrible situation. Fingers crossed this will be a seasonal kind of virus as the temperature warms up in Japan. Hopefully it will kind of die off. That's really, I think, all we can hope for. We don't know what's going to happen with coronavirus. It is very, very scary, and I can't imagine how scary it is being on board, knowing that other people on your cruise ship have the virus, and knowing that even if you get off, you don't know where you're going to go, and you don't know what you're going to do. You don't know how you're going to get home. You don't know what flights are going. It sounds awful, but the positive attitudes coming out of this, they're just inspiring. The other cruise lines are putting in really strict rules around this to try and prevent anyone coming on board with the virus. Most cruise lines are not allowing anybody on board who's been to China or Hong Kong or various other countries within about 2 weeks. Norwegian and Royal Caribbean have gone to the extreme with who they're not letting on board, and they're not letting anybody on board who has a Chinese passport, regardless of where they live. If you just happen to be in Britain but you have a Chinese passport, you're not allowed on any Royal Caribbean or Norwegian cruise line ship, which is very... I think it does catch out a lot of people who have no exposure to China or this virus, and for them it is really, really awful. It does seem very, very extreme, but I think the cruise ships are just panicking. The cruise lines don't know what to do. No one's ever really had something like this before, and they're doing their best. All other cruise ships are just trying not to get into the situation of the Diamond Princess, where they're floating around for 2 weeks with the passengers trapped in their cabins, just trying to keep them entertained and keeping them from going insane. I honestly can't imagine how scary and awful it would be to be on board or to really be anywhere in that part of the world right now. That said, if I was going to be stuck on any cruise ship, Princess are one of my favourites, and you can guarantee that they're going to look after you. So at least it happened on this ship, I suppose. Still awful, but I would prefer to be stuck on here because you know Princess are going to look after you compared to some other cruise lines, which I won't name. Princess have been continually putting out updates about this. They're very much on it and they're kind of keeping people in the loop, which is nice. I think people get very, very nervous and very, very scared when they're not told things. And even if they are told things that are not ideal, they appreciate being kept in the loop. So Princess are constantly putting out videos from their vice presidents, from various people, just to say we're doing everything we can. They're very grateful to the Japanese government who have been looking after them. I love David and Sally's positive attitude to this. It really does make a massive difference. Not just to the people who are viewing this from the outside, but I imagine to the other people who are on the cruise ship. To see such positive attitudes is really, really nice. I'm just going to play you a quick bit from David here. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this, but there needs to be more of this positive attitude in the world, so take it away, David.
Literally every hour something is changing, the biggest of course being 41 additional passengers being found positive tested for the coronavirus, one of whom is a friend of ours on honeymoon who has been who is going to be split from his wife, on honeymoon. He is going to be taken to a medical facility and she will have to remain on board. That is going to be very, very, very tough indeed. So thank you. A number of you have already come back to me and said that he will be in your thoughts and your prayers. Please also include his wife on here. Right, okay. All the best, everyone. Have a brilliant day wherever you are and whatever you're doing. Remembering, you can make the change that you want in your life. It's all about what goes on in here and in here, your heart. You can make the world a better place. And it all starts with you.
David has been showing us everything on board. He's been showing us the food. He's luckily in a balcony cabin, so we can go outside and see when the sun sets and when the sun rises. If you're in an inside cabin, you're in darkness the entire time, and I think that's possibly the most difficult thing about it. You have no way to know whether it's 3 p.m, 3 a.m. You don't know what day it is. It makes really no difference. Luckily, everyone has got Wi-Fi, so at least they can check in and see what is going on in the rest of the world, even if they are stuck inside. Please do subscribe and leave me a comment. Thank you for watching this. I do really appreciate it. That is it from me this time, so I'll see you next time.